Shalom and good day all, this is Tehillim29 back again for another indie comic review. And for this indie comic review, I'm returning back to Black Box Comics and finishing off the review of Shinokage issues 6 and 7. And I must admit, this has been quite an interesting series. Now, whether this series is going to continue after issue 7 or not, I got no idea. Or if the creator or the person who works on the project is going to start a new one, no idea. I'd definitely like to know from Black Box Comics. So to move into first things first, let's jump into the comic that I'll be reviewing now. So moving into the first comic out of these two that I'll be reviewing, it'll be issue 8 of, it'll be issue 6, not issue 8, because that's not out yet. My error, my fault. So, for this cover, does this cover in any way, shape or form connect to something that happens inside of the story? Sure enough it does, to which I give it an 8 out of 10. And that's where I was sort of getting a little bit confused earlier with the issue and the rating. I'll now show some of the internal art, which covers some of the story around the beginning, middle, and of course the end. And as we move into the beginning of the story and some of the art in the story, we get a bit of a training session between Hachiro and I believe it's Daisaku, if I remember correctly, or I've written it down correctly. And as you can see here, we've got like a bit of an older person training a somewhat younger person and making sure that he doesn't lose focus in his training in what he needs to do next. I'll now jump towards the middle of the story. As we begin to move into the middle of the story, the ambush has begun as to the enemy that they wish to take out, including some traitors. And of course we have the sword talking again in the series. And the sword's name, which is also sentient, is also called Retsubo, which is really nice to see. Because it almost felt like it was forgotten about in one of the last couple of issues. As we move towards the end of the story, we end up meeting up with one of the members, which is on the villain side, and there's a bit of a discussion in regards to Hachiro and what's happening in regards to that and what they intend to do to sort of like counter his actions. So for the internal art, as it's been quite consistent from issues 1 to 6, and I'll cover 7 afterwards, I gave it an 8 out of 10. Now it's time to move into the into the story. Starting off with first things first, did we get any references to any of the previous issues? No, but I really think it would have helped. Did we get any indication of time as to when some of these events were taking place? Not really. You were sort of like left to work it out in regards to sort of like the colouring in regards to the time of day. Location, of course, this still takes place in Japan. The cast of characters consisting of Hachiro, Makoto. We also had a group called the Red Hand Group, which they also go up against. We had Daisaku, Takeo, Kazu, and last but not least, Hinata. It's now time to jump to the next issue and cover its review. So now it's time to jump into issue 7. And first things first, does this cover in any way, shape, or form connect to anything that's happening inside the story? Sure enough, it does, to which I give it an 8.5 out of 10. Now it's time to jump into the internal art, as well as having a bit of a look inside of the story as some of the things that are happening around the beginning, middle, and of course the end. As things begin, this sort of feels like it takes place in regards to the next day, and we've got the character of Hachiro, and we've also got Takia there too. As we jump towards the middle of the story, the fight continues between one side and the other. And of course, Hachiro is still on the battlefield. And there's Makato getting ready to take a shot. Jumping towards the end of the story, we end up coming across a bit of a dream scene, to which we get somewhat the Tengu involved. Seen in the dream, but we also have Hachiro and also, I believe it's a love interest of his, if I remember. But no doubt, I definitely enjoyed the art for this issue. So for the internal art, I gave it an 8.5 out of 10. Now it's time to move to the story. Now, did this story have any comic book references to any of the previous issues? No, but it needs them. Moving into the next area, time, did we get any indication of when some of these time or events were taking place? No, we didn't. It needs them. Last but not least, we got the location, or the location is in Japan, but we didn't get like locations as to where any of the hideouts were, and it would have played a big help in not only the last issue but also this issue too. So now it's time to move into the last area, and that is the cast of characters, to which we had Hachiro, Takia, Daisuke, Shomakazu, Kiyoshi, and Eiichi. Last but not least, we had Makato, we had the Sword Retsubo, making an appearance once again in the story, and last but not least, Hanata. The overall story rating for this, I gave an 8 out of 10. Well, until then, let's keep it colourful and have yourself an awesome day.